بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today, inshallah, we are gonna talk about chapter 8, Intrusion Detection. It is related closely with the following chapter 9, so inshallah we are gonna talk about them this week inshallah together, and you will set for the mini quiz inshallah, the second mini quiz inshallah. Okay, intrusion detection. As you may recall that intrusion is called to any action that is done to access a specific system or network or an application without authorization. So any breach, any attempt to breach a system, to access it, either to modify it or not, without regard to the purpose of that access, whether to harm or not, whether to be an active or passive action to do, any of that is considered a malicious act, and it is considered as an intrusion. Okay, so it is illegitimate or unauthorized access to a system or an application or a device or a network. Okay, we can see like different types of intruders: the actors, the hackers, the crackers, the attackers, who are going to attempt to do any illegitimate act to access unauthorized system. They are called intruders in relation to intrusion detection. Okay, so these intruders, they can be individuals or members of an organized crime group with the goal of financial reward, or with the goal of just doing a destruction act, or just annoying others, and so on. It is similar to the purposes of malicious softwares, if you remember when we talked about them a few weeks ago. Okay, so these intruders can be individuals or they can be a member of another group. That group can be sponsored by a government, like a state, or by another company for the purpose of competition, and so on. Okay, or they can be just a group that are independent. Okay, their activities, their malicious activities may include, as listed here, identity theft, theft of financial credentials, corporate espionage, data theft, data ransoming, and so on. I don't agree with the third bullet points. They can be from any nationality, any religion, any sect. So they are not only from Eastern Europe or Russian or Southern Asian. Okay, other titles that can be linked to them, they may ask, or they may call them, sorry, as an activists. But activists in this domain, they can be more specific. The title can be more specific to be called as hacking activists. And as a short form, as we can see here, is hacktivists. Okay, so hackers, crackers, intruders, hacktivists, and so on. Any of these titles may refer to the same doer of this intrusion or hacking activity. Okay, so these actions can be implementing or executing any malicious software with any purpose. One of them is the denial of service attacks. Okay, these are what we said, that we may have some state sponsored, government sponsored groups or organizations to do hacking acts, intrusion acts against other governments, other states, or against specific companies or even individuals for any purpose. It is worth noting here that usually these types of groups that are state sponsored will be very equipped, highly equipped, especially in terms of skills and technologies. So they are, or they will be able to conduct or carry out an advanced persistent threats, APTs. Okay, so in this case, it will be difficult or more difficult to defend against them, but it is not impossible. Okay, as we said before, that it is impossible to defend against all sorts of attacks, and vice versa, it is not impossible to defend a specific or against a specific attack. Okay, these are some other motives of the intruders, but it is not necessary to know all sorts of them, just to have a general idea that there are different types of them with different classes, with different levels of skills. It is worth noting here that maybe in the dark web you can find hacking toolkits, attack toolkits here, that can be purchased, can be bought to carry out an attack against another individual or another company or group without the need for technical skills. So the person that is going to run them doesn't have to have the technical skills that are needed usually for a typical hacker. Okay, so these are the different levels: apprentice, like beginners, journeyman, and master. But again, it is not necessary for you to memorize them in details. Okay, these are some examples of intrusions that we, in one way or another, mention them throughout the different chapters since the beginning of this semester. like remote root compliments, web server defacement, guessing passwords, copying databases containing credit cards and numbers and so on. So the usual intruder behavior is to target acquisition of information, like information gathering, that is usually with passive attacks, initial access to watch and spy on it, on the system actions or users. Privilege escalations is one of the behaviors, regardless of that attacker being insider or outsider. Outsider, it means from outside the privileged or authorized users of that system, or from outside our organization or company, and insider from within the organization who has most probably a legitimate access to the system, but they escalate, they increase the level of their privilege, of their permissions. This means that attackers, insider attackers or outsider, that attackers privileges were limited to do specific actions or roles, but he is going to conduct an attack, an intrusion, to either escalate his privileges, or if he is hiring someone else from outside to escalate his privileges, like our employee Ahmed is going to hire somebody from outside, an attacker, an intruder, to hack the system, our system, and give him higher privileges on the system. So he will be able to do so and so that usually he is not able to do them because he doesn't have the privileges to do this. Okay. At the end, usually at the end of any intrusion, the intruder will try to cover his tracks. So the intrusion itself will not be detected, or even if it is detected, the intruder himself will not be identified. Okay, and these are some explanation of the intruder behaviors that we have mentioned as examples. Okay, here we would like to clarify these two concepts, so you don't get confused between them because of the intrusion word in both of them. We have security intrusion and we have intrusion detection. The security intrusion is the security intrusion. The intrusion itself is a security event or a combination of multiple security events that constitutes a security incident in which an intruder gains or attempts to gain access to a system without having authorization to do so. Okay, so this is the intrusion event itself. It's called security intrusion. Okay, on the other hand, the intrusion detection is how you are going to monitor the system, your systems, devices, your devices, to in order to be able to detect, to know as soon as possible that there was or there is a security intrusion happening or has happened. So it is a security service that monitors and analyzes system events for the purpose of finding and providing a real-time or at least near real-time warnings of attempts to access system resources in an authorized manner. Okay, the point here of the time factor here is very important for it to be on the real time or near real time, because unfortunately there have been reports stating that the average detection time for breaches, incident breaches, or security intrusions that were analyzed on that report was about 45 days, if I can recall. 45 days for a system, especially a critical system, to be intruded, to be breached, hacked, without the security administrators knowing, that it is like bad thing, honestly, because during these 45 days, of course, and this is the average, this means that there are some incidences, there are some security intrusions that were detected less than 45 days, maybe in one day or even, or 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And there are, on the other hand, some other security intrusions that have been detected in more than 45 days. Again, it is harmful or maybe disastrous for a system, a critical system, to be hacked and without any detection for these number of days. The attacker, the intruder, is able to do many things during these 45 days. So it is better to detect it as soon as possible in order to be able to take the appropriate response. Okay, the intrusion detection systems, IDS, can be categorized into three categories based on their location of operation. Okay, the first one is host based IDS. As an acronym, it is HIDS, HIDS, host intrusion detection system. Okay, it from its name, again, use your common sense. From its name, it monitors the characteristics of a single host for suspicious activities. So it is in a single workstation or PC. Okay. The second one is network based IDS, NITS and IDS. Again, from its name, it monitors network traffic and analyzes network transport and application protocols. Network transport and application protocols, these three protocols, to identify again suspicious activities. So the monitoring here and the analysis here is to identify, to catch suspicious activities. Okay, the third one is the mixed one, distributed code or hybrid IDS. combines both of host and network based. Okay, all these three types of IDSs, they have three logical components. Okay, I am talking now about this. Sensors to collect the data, collector, analyzers, analyzers to determine if the intrusion has occurred. So the data, the needed data will be collected by the sensor. Then these data will be analyzed by the analyzer, and a decision will be taken whether there is an intrusion or not, or there is a suspicion or not. Okay, and the outcome or the result of this analysis will be displayed on the third one, on the user interface, to view the output or control system behavior. It is like a dashboard. Usually it is controlled by the system security administrator, to see that this IP is okay, or this PC is okay, this one is not, this one is detected, there is a suspicious activity here, in order to decide based on that whether there is a need to take an action, a response, or not. Here this is an illustration to show the intersection between the behavior of the authorized user and the behavior of the unauthorized user, the intruder. Okay, there is an overlap. If it is based only on the behavior, user A and user B, they use usually their devices in their own way that is different from the other one. Here this is for A, for example, and this is for user B, but they have some intersected, some similarity in this area between both of them. So the system should be intelligent enough, the IDS system should be intelligent enough to distinguish between A and B, and without being confused with the intersected area. Here where we can have false positive and false negative. Do you remember in biometrics when we talked about false acceptance rate and false rejection rate? It is a similar thing here. Okay, but here it is in terms of the behavior. Okay, so let's move now to the requirements of an IDS. It is required for such an IDS, such an intrusion detection system to run continually. Okay, it it has to run continually 24/7, because we don't know when the intrusion gonna happen, so we have to be ready continuously. It has to be fault tolerant. If there is a false negative or false positive, if there is a mistake on the decision taken by the IDS, for example, the authorized user is now trying to access the system, but he is being rejected. There should be a tolerance level that it is acceptable to have that. It is similar to the concept of the threshold that we talked about with biometrics. Okay, it has to be like robust enough to resist subversion. This is also very important. It has to be like very light, that there will be no that much of overhead on the system. There is no high consumption of the running of the processing needed to do it, so it doesn't affect the functionality of the whole system. It has to be based on the security policies of the organization or company. It has to be adaptable, like flexible, can be customized, can be updated, and so on. Dynamic enough, the same thing. Okay, scalable. It has to be scalable. Scalable, this means that it is possible to increase the number of users. For example, if we are, or as we started as the college, for example, I think that they started with only, I think, 200 male and female students. Let's take college A, for example, started with 10 years ago with only 200 students, but now after 10 years they have about 4,000 students. Shall we uh, purchase a new IDS system, or that IDS system that we had is scalable, so it can accommodate, or it has the capability to accommodate the increasing number of our students, and so on. Okay, this is an important slide here. The analysis approaches. The IDS analysis approaches, and in the following chapter we will see the same concepts, the same approaches with the IPS, intrusion prevention systems. They consist of two types: anomaly detection and signature detection. The anomaly detection is to create a profile for the authorized user, and then to compare any new traffic or any new access request with it. Okay, if it is within the legitimate profile, it is okay, it is allowed to access the system. If it is not, it will be rejected. Okay, the signature base is the opposite. What is going to be recorded in the database is the malicious patterns, malicious users, or programs or files. Okay, if any new request is going to come, it will be compared with it. If it is one of them, it will be rejected. If it is not one of the malicious signatures recorded, it will be allowed. Okay, this, I think that we have mentioned it before. This is mainly the antivirus, AV, the antivirus mechanism. Okay, so the anomaly detection, again, the collection of data relating to the behavior of legitimate user over a period of time, of course, that we call it training period. You may remember that when we said that we need to train the classifier, for example, the system here, to work on all times, all sorts of days, working days and weekends, and so on. Usually 2 weeks of a training period is the minimal for that to be closed or to be more accurate. Okay, so the current observed behavior is analyzed. The current observed behavior is analyzed to determine whether this behavior is that of a legitimate user or not. If not, if it deviates, if it is different from that behavior of the legitimate user, so it will be considered as an intruder, and it will be reported as a detection. Okay, the other side, the signature base, it uses a set of known malicious data patterns or attack rules that are compared with current behavior. It might be called as misuse detection. It can only identify, which is a disadvantage here, it can only identify known attackers from which it has patterns or rules. So if there is any new unknown attackers or attacks, it will not be detected. The anomaly detection can be statistical based or knowledge based or machine learning. Just briefly, the statistical based on statistics, on numbers, like based on the number of hour, number of usage hour daily, or based on the time of access daily. So comparing number with number, direct. Good thing about it that it is simple. It doesn't need that much of the overhead processing, but it is not that accurate. The second one, the knowledge based on the known rules of legitimate behavior. Okay, so the rules, the permissions for that legitimate user is to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things. If this user who is trying to access our system, or who has just accessed our system, is trying to deviate, to do from these rules, deviates from the normal legitimate behavior, is doing something that he is not supposed to do, so it will be detected. Again, it is more accurate than the statistical one, but it may miss some those indirect relations between different events or activities of the user, and it needs slightly more time and processing overhead than the statistical one. But the machine learning, the last one, can be claimed that it is the more accurate than the other two, especially when using the data mining. by creating a profile or a model of the legitimate authorized user and then compare it. There are many different classification models like Bayesian networks, like Markov model, like neural networks, but you can study them later, either independently or on the artificial intelligence course. But you need to know that it is more accurate than the other two. The machine learning is more accurate than the other two, but there is an expense for that. There is a cost for that and that it will need more time and processing overhead, the machine learning. Okay, the signature detection or heuristic detection is in two categorization, two types. One signature approaches and the other one is role based heuristic identification. You don't need to know exactly each one of them, but we may need to know that there are possible false alarm, false positive or negative. It is false alarm rate. The signatures needs to be large enough to minimize the false alarm while still detecting a sufficiently large fraction of malicious data. The host-based intrusion detection here, we talked about it, so we don't want to explain it again, but I am going to just put some highlights on the important or additional things. Here, the data sources is important. The common data sources for any IDS, especially host-based IDS, is the system call traces, the log file, file integrity, checksum, registry access. They they are important sources for the sensor to collect the data, so they are analyzed later on. We said about the network based that it monitors traffic at selected point of networks. It examines network transport and application level protocols. We mentioned that. And these are the illustrations. There are some systems that or some kind of attacks that are more suitable to be detected by one of these IDS techniques. Or in other words, some IDS techniques are more suitable to detect specific types of attacks. For example, here it is not an inclusive list. The signature detection is more suitable of detecting application layer attacks, transport layer attacks, network layer attacks, unexpected application services, policy violations. So this is the signature list. Whereas on the other hand, the anomaly detection is more appropriate to detect denial of service attacks, scanning, and worms. These are some sort of the analysis, and these are some or the parts of the logging files usually the timestamp, the event type, the rating, the source and destination of IP address, and number of bytes transmitted. So these are some of the information that should be stated on the alert. Honeypots. The honeypot concepts is important here to be known by you. The honey pot, جرة العسل. You can imagine from the title that it is designed, it is something, let's say, in the imagination from the name honeypot, it is something that is prepared to lure, to attract somebody or something else. Okay, for example, as you are putting a honey in a pot in a place, so the bees, for example, can go there and don't come to you. Okay, so here it is the same concept. It is a system or a website, for example, that is designed or developed or put in place to be as a trick for the attacker, as a decoy system. So it is a decoy system designed to lure the potential attacker away from the critical system. So we have a critical system, but you need, for example, let's say, to make it available online, but you don't want the attacker to target it, so you create another website as a honeypot. It is similar to the original one, but with non-sensitive, non-critical data or information there, and it is connected to non-critical, again, non-sensitive systems. So even if the attacker accessed it, he will not be able to do any harm to our systems. And there is even another purpose of it, is that it is it enables the system security administrators to collect as much information about the attacker's activity. They will be able to see how the attacker will act if he get access to our real system, to our original system. So we can classify that behavior of the attacker, those activities, that how is he is going to do, what sort of services that he would like, or he is going to destroy or to try to destroy, or if he were able to access them. So the system administrator will be able to create a signature for those activities or behaviors. So he will be detected next time if he tried to access our real system. Okay. These are some usual classifications. So it is not necessary to know them in detail, but let's just list them. We can classify the honeypot into low interaction honeypot and high interaction honeypot from their name. Low interaction, that it it is only able to be linked with just minimal sort of systems or activities that can be done through that. The other one, the high interaction, it will be almost like the real system. So the attacker will not realize that he's not on the real system, he's on honeypot. But with the low interaction honeypot, there is a possibility that the attacker will or may realize that he's not on the real website or system. Snort here, it was listed as one of the signature ideas, but it is sort of a light one, that it is operable and it can be implemented on any other system easily. This is its architecture, but you need to know that what is it only. That's it about this chapter. So we talked about what is the intrusion detection, what sort and types of the intruders, what are the approaches of the IDSs in general, anomaly detection and signature detection, what are the types of IDSs, host based, network based, and hybrid. When we talked about the differences between the titles or the concepts of security intrusions and intrusion detections, and we talked about the honeypots. So inshallah that you will find, inshallah, next chapter is very linked with this chapter. So most of the concepts there in chapter 9 will be a repetition from some of these concepts. So don't worry about the extent of the mini quiz. It will be easy inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.